Hello and welcome to City Beat. We are your central source of news and information for the city of Rocky Mount. I'm your host, Tamika Keenan-Norman, and today's show focuses on mutual aid. We had staff members from the city of Rocky Mount who ventured to other areas in the aftermath of Hurricanes Florence and Michael to assist others who were in need. So thanks to our Public Works and Water Resources Department, our electric crews, and staff members of the Rocky Mount Fire Department. So we're going to speak more with them about what they did in terms of mutual aid efforts. And yes, it's been a while since Hurricanes Florence and Michael hit so many different cities and towns, but people are still affected and people are still recovering. So stay tuned. More of this show on mutual aid is coming up next.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Hello and welcome back to City Beat. I'm your host, Tamika Keenan-Norman, and today's show is focused on mutual aid. 3 key departments within the city of Rocky Mount provided aid to other areas severely impacted by Hurricanes Florence and Michael. And one of those departments are here with us right now, Public Works and Water Resources, which I think dealt specifically with the aftermath of Florence.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah. So joining me today, we've got our Public Works and Water Resources Director, Jonathan Boone. And joining him for the first time on City Beat, you okay over there? Is Dale Jones, Senior Construction Crew Supervisor. So welcome for the first time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Jonathan has been up here before, so welcome back.
Thank you.
To City Beat,
Glad
Jonathan.
to be back.
Yeah, good to have you. Tell me a little bit give me a technical definition for mutual aid for us.
Okay, so the mutual aid program is really a program that was developed by the state back in the mid-90s after Hurricane Fran, which impacted our area. And at that time, Governor Hunt, created a task force, involved the League of Municipalities and the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and they had developed a program where municipalities can help other municipalities that are impacted by severe weather events. And certainly we've been impacted here locally. And it's similar to what we experienced here after we were impacted by Fran and Floyd, neighbors helping neighbors. So that's what the mutual aid program is about. Neighboring jurisdictions helping others. In this case, we had very little impact from Hurricane Florence. The town of New Bern had significant impacts, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And they reached out to several municipalities that were part of the mutual aid program, and we answered the call.
Okay. So when you got that call, who did you get it from specifically?
Well, it was a fellow public works director in New Bern, Matt Montagna, and he had actually called several jurisdictions. He reached out to Garner and Greenville, Wilson, and Rocky Mount. And he'd called me on that Friday. I think landfall for Florence was on the 14th of September. So it took them a little while to kind of develop a game plan, and he ended up calling me the following week, the Friday the 21st. And we were able to have crews on site the following Wednesday, the 26th. So it's that ability to respond quickly. Again, we had, I wouldn't say we were not impacted. We certainly were impacted, but not to the point that we couldn't lend a helping hand to the town of New Bern.
Exactly. Now, Dale, that's where you come in.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you got the call from Jonathan or your supervisor, what went through your mind? Because you're going to an area that's been heavily impacted. They have minimal resources. What were you thinking?
Well, when we initially got it, me and my crew, we had already been discussing that we knew some of the things that were going on down there, so we would like to be involved. We didn't know how or what or anything, but we had talked amongst ourselves that we would like to help in some way. So once we got the call, we were like, okay, this is an opportunity for us to go and help. We were a little bit nervous, about going because we hadn't been before, and lodging and food and stuff like that. So we were kind of nervous about that part.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, that brings me to another point. Neither one of you can answer this question, but how do you acclimate yourself to an area you've never been to before, and then you have to help out? How does that work?
Well, so as part of the pre-planning with Matt, they had identified a coordinator for the crews that would be coming in from out of town. Again, actually, several of the communities had already arrived before we had arrived on Wednesday the 26th. But they had a local coordinator that kind of helped facilitate the work of the teams, kind of get them oriented, provide them a map of the areas that they would be working, coordinate their daily work, and they were their primary point of contact. So they had already arranged for the lodging, which is really one of the responsibilities of the jurisdiction, requesting the assistance. They need to be able to provide lodging for the employees that come in to help. We had provided the employees with a cash advance that they could use to cover their meals and things of that nature. We had fuel cards. They were responsible for providing fuel if that's an issue. But they had some areas in the city that were not significantly impacted that could house the employees, and so having that local contact, and once they started work, it was just like working here, other than you're in an area that's obviously had significant flooding during that event, but. Anyway, they provided someone to kind of acclimate the crews.
So Dale, what was a typical day like for you? I mean, what, if there was such a thing, what time did you start and end, and what were your tasks?
Our days, we started at 6:30 in the mornings, and we worked till 6:30 that night. We really didn't take a lunch. We did take something, but we kind of kept working because the areas we were in, they had lost power and all. There wasn't a lot of places to eat. So as the trucks were going to the landfill, they would stop on the way and stuff, and so we would trade out. So we basically kept going. Sometimes we'd work a little over because of the landfill hours. We couldn't get dumped. It was a massive amount of trucks there. They were doing 500-800 loads a day. So sometimes you'd have to wait in line to get dumped, and we wanted to get dumped so the next morning you'd be ready to go again. So that was a big issue, was getting the trucks dumped.
So what were the conditions like when you first got there? Because this was a little while after the hurricane.
Yeah, when we first got there, actually a lot of the residents and stuff had kind of moved on, finding other lodging or whatnot because you didn't have power. And so the traffic was very light, but the roads was one lane. I mean, you talking about blocks after blocks, debris on both sides, 10, 12 foot high, all in the street. So it was very narrow, passing. But as we cleaned up, that opened up and traffic began to pick back up. So we had to deal with traffic later on.
So how long were you in that area?
We were there all together 4 weeks. The city sent us for 4 weeks. There was 2 crews of 4, and we worked a week and alternated back and forth. So I actually did 2 weeks, and the other crew did 2 weeks.
Wow, okay. I'm from Wallace, which is near Wilmington, if you've never heard of it. So we were impacted, or my parents were impacted after Florence as well. And the debris, I waited for maybe 2 weeks after the hurricane to visit them because a lot of the roads were closed. And it was amazing. It looked like the storm had just hit because it was that much debris in the roadways. So how did that feel to be able to help those folks?
It was a good feeling. We were proud to be part of the city. With the logos and all, the people would say, "Oh, y'all from Rocky Mount," So they were excited to see us. The employees that worked there, they were very appreciative for us coming. You would think that somebody just lost everything would be down and out, but they had good spirits. They were like, "Woo, thank y'all so much." So we had a good, and that helped us, because working 12-hour days away from home, we didn't have the best of everything. So, it was a toll on us too. So to see somebody smiling and being happy, that was uplifting to us to keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. So Jonathan, how does it feel for you to have these employees go out and do those types of things? And how do you prepare them for something like this?
Well, one, it feels good. Again, we've been in that situation before. We actually have not had an occasion to take advantage of mutual aid.
Okay.
We generally had enough resources here locally, or either had already contractors on call, on-call contracts that could come and help respond. But to be able to help a community that suffered the degree of devastation that New Bern did, and you mentioned Wallace, a lot of those communities in the southeastern portion of the state, makes you feel good. And I think that's, a lot of employees that are drawn to public service, that's what they want to do. They want to help people. So to be able to do that, whether that's here or whether that's in New Bern or any other location that needed our help. And we certainly know if we ever got into a situation where we needed assistance, we think we could reach out to those same jurisdictions. So there's a level of comfort in that, a level of pride, and to be able to send employees down to do the work, it made you feel good inside.
Well, that is great. Well, we thank you both for all you do, for all the crews who went out and assisted as well. Please tell them thank you. Too. I'm sure the folks at New Bern, like you said, are very appreciative of all of your efforts. Yeah. So thank you. Anything we missed? Any additional comments that you all want to add? Well,
I will say, so I received some periodic status reports from the Public Works Director in New Bern, and on a couple of occasions he was certainly very complimentary of the work we were doing, and even mentioned that in several of the weeks when we were down, outside of City of New Bern crews, our crews were collecting and disposing of the second largest amount of material for the weeks that they were there. So know that, again, not only our crews were there helping, but they were really kind of leading the charge. And over the 4 weeks we were there, we collected about 700 tons of material. And again, this was all material. We set down 3 units. We set down 1 knuckle boom truck and 2 debris trailers. Knuckle boom truck had a body about 18 cubic yards, 2 debris trailers 40 cubic yards. Again, over a period of 4 weeks, we transported about 700 tons of material. So to kind of put that in perspective for those folks that remember the space shuttle, that's about 9 space shuttles over 4 weeks. That's how much material we collected from the streets in New Bern. So a lot of material, very complimentary of our crews. We hope to actually bring the guys in that participate. We actually had 10 employees that rotated in and out over those 4 weeks, and hopefully give them an opportunity to be recognized in front of City Council. But and New Bern's even expressed an interest in coming up and participating in that. That's how thankful they were for the assistance. So we're looking forward to that also.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for joining us on City Beat as well.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Coming up next, we'll speak with our Rocky Mount Fire Department and find out how they were a part of mutual aid efforts as well. Stay tuned. More of City Beat is coming up next.
Got a quarter?
Hello and welcome back to City Beat. I'm Tamika Keenan Norman, and if you're just tuning into the show today, it's all about mutual aid, and I want to give a special thanks to Jonathan Boone and Dale Jones from Public Works and Water Resources, who talked about how they provided assistance to New Bern in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence. And joining us today, we've got members from our Rocky Mount Fire Department. Donnie Daniels is joining us, Division Chief of Operations, and also Emergency Management Coordinator for the city.
That's correct.
So you've got a lot going on.
I do. Thank you for having us today.
You're welcome. Also joining us is Jamie Cook, Fire Captain Jamie Cook. And we just interviewed you, seems like a few days ago, Jamie.
Yeah.
So welcome back to City Beat. Thanks to both of you for joining us on the show today to talk about mutual aid. And one of the things I mentioned is that with our Public Works Department, they primarily focused on New Bern, but you all visited a few cities and towns. Tell me where and how you assisted.
We did. Well, we were, and we'll talk a little more about mutual aid later in the discussions, but we were requested by the state to deploy our swiftwater rescue team, and they deployed down to the New Bern and Trenton area, which where they carried out most of their missions. Captain Cook actually deployed with the North Carolina Helicopter Aquatic Rescue Team, and I think he was a little bit everywhere in southeastern North Carolina with his missions with that team. So, but those were the primary areas that the City of Rocky Mount Fire Department resources were sent to during Hurricane Florence.
Okay, and so how many team members did we have go to those areas?
We had 14 team members that deployed with the Swiftwater Rescue Team, and Captain Cook deployed separately with the NC Hart team, the helicopter rescue team.
Okay, so Captain Cook, you're the only member from here as a part who's a member of that team?
Well, we've got 2 additional members, and what we did this time, we make rosters, and we saw it fit for those guys to stay on the water team this time, and I helped cover because the Hilo Aquatic team has several members throughout the state. So what we did is we tried to pull from different areas. The western part of the state, which was not as affected as hard, and they come in and they helped us man that aircraft during that time.
Okay. So you mentioned we were going to talk a little bit more about mutual aid, and the fire department is part of a statewide mutual
That's
aid
correct.
agreement. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that works.
Well, the North Carolina mutual aid system is pretty much designed where towns and cities, they sign on in an agreement to either provide assistance or receive assistance from other communities during a disaster. You know, the primary goal is that they have resources to be able to take care of their own community first, but if they get to a point where their resources are depleted and they need assistance, they can reach out to the state or directly to other communities to provide and receive that assistance. It's pretty much set up into 3 different categories. You know, you have the direct mutual aid, which that's when we provide assistance directly to another community or receive assistance to another community, and that happens, you know, fairly regularly in operations where we send a ladder truck to another community to support something going on, and there are times where they'll send tankers and they'll send firefighters to supplement manpower. A direct mutual aid is when we contact directly Edgecombe County or anywhere in the state and ask for assistance, and that is reciprocal. State coordinated mutual aid is actually something that's coordinated through the state, and that is when a community or a town, they contact the state and they request the resources that are needed. Those requests go through the county emergency management offices up to the state EOC, and at that point the state coordinates the response, and they take care of any reimbursement measures that are needed, as well as coordinating the transportation of where teams need to be, what type of resources need to be deployed, and that's what our swiftwater rescue team, most of, if not all of their responses have been through a state coordinated response. And of course we have the intrastate mutual aid, and that's when one state sends resources to another. And we have not, at this point, I don't believe we have sent any of our team members or any of our teams to another state. We have received teams from other states as far as USAR teams, task force teams. So those are the 3 types of mutual aid. The direct mutual aid we deal with all the time. We're fortunate to have strong partnerships with our region. And the state coordinated mutual aid is when we send our special teams out to assist.
Now, do you remember the last time we received mutual aid assistance?
Well, obviously during Matthew, we had, we initially started with some direct mutual aid assistance through some of the local county fire departments and their water rescue teams. If you recall, we had some river flooding and we had several neighborhoods that needed to be evacuated. We had, between our engine company response and our swiftwater rescue team, we were overwhelmed by trying to get to everyone. We reserved our swiftwater rescue team for high-risk rescues, but we were fortunate to have some teams in the county that brought equipment in, and they helped us to evacuate some of the neighborhoods. So that was some direct mutual aid assistance we received, and then as we were able to get resources into our area, we received assistance through the Chapel Hill Fire Department Swiftwater Rescue Team. The National Guard is usually pretty close as far as getting in, depending on how much of a need there is throughout the state. But I'd say Chapel Hill was about the last time we had a team in town that responded to assist us.
Okay. So Jamie, I know you mentioned rescues. Tell me a little bit about what the experience was like for you on that Hilo Aquatic team, right? Hilo Aquatic team. Right. What were your tasks like?
Well, it was almost like a day at the firehouse, just around an aircraft, and you waited for missions to come in because on the Hilo side and air division, they tend to go through those rescues and make sure that there's no other way to do them. So we would get our mission and we would go out, whether it would be a wide area search, because we can go out in places that are already flooded that you can't get access to, and check houses that are in rural areas that boat crews would take hours to get to, and we can check on those individuals and move those individuals as needed. So that's a lot of what we did. We would go and we would get reports of people that were ready to be moved out of their house and they were just too far away for boat crews to go get, and we would go pick them up. It was just, a lot of times it was safer for the boat crew, a little more time effective to go ahead and get them out. So that's about what we normally did on a daily basis.
Okay, so how long were you on this mission per se?
I started on Saturday and I think I got back Thursday night, so it was almost a week, almost a week of it. So.
Okay, and typically during the course of a day, how many hours would you be out?
Most of the time you would actually get off the ground and you would be up in the air for 8 to 10 hours. Our days are only 12 hours, so at the end of 12 hours you had to stop, but most of our flight times were 8 to 10 hour days of either wide area search or moving personnel and survivors.
Okay, so how many rescues would you say your team was a part of?
On the helo side, I'm not sure how many as the amount of aircraft, how many we moved. But on the swift water side, when those guys went to New Bern and Trenton, they did over 100 plus rescues in the days that they were there.
Okay, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. I'm sure this was not your first experience with mutual aid because you've been with the city for a while now, right?
That's correct. This has been one of several deployments that I've been on. Of course, we did our stuff locally here in Matthew, and I was also deployed in Matthew on the helo side, and have been several times with the swiftwater side. We've been to as far as the mountains to the coast. As far as our team, as far as being deployed, we were deployed at Atlantic Beach several years ago, and then matter of fact, Chief Daniels was on our team during our mountain deployment. So we spent some time together, and we've deployed our team from one end to the state to the other. So,
and one of the things I mentioned to Jonathan in our earlier segment too was, how do you prepare for something like this? Because there are different crisis situations. How do you prepare, and how do you familiarize yourself with an area that maybe this is your first time going to?
Well, we're fortunate, and we have several special teams in the City of Rocky Mount Fire Department, and they train year-round. We have our swiftwater rescue team, our dive team, our technical rescue team, a fire investigation team, our hazmat team, and those teams, they're all voluntary. I mean, no one is forced to participate in those teams, and it's a lot of sacrifice involved to go and get the initial certifications and training, and then to continue with the monthly training. Those teams are also, through the state emergency management. We are, by being a Type 1 team, we go through resource typing, where we have to stay in direct communication with the state as far as the type of equipment we have, how we maintain that equipment, how many team members we have, the level of training for each team member. So we're really, it's a all year process, and now we're at a point, we're fortunate that we've deployed enough and been, we have enough experience on those teams, particularly the swiftwater rescue team, that they've seen a lot of rescues, as Captain Cook referred to, from the mountains to the coast and everywhere in between. They've seen a lot, and that experience is very valuable when we start to deploy our personnel. We sent the swiftwater rescue team. They're the first to go out almost all the time, but if you recall, back in November 2016, from a state coordinated mutual aid response, we sent 2 crews to western North Carolina during the wildfires.
Yes, I remember.
So those, so I don't want to overlook the other components of our department that are deployable, teams as well. So.
You mentioned equipment, and as a matter of fact, the last show that I did was with Captain Cook, and we talked about the high clearance vehicle, transporting people and cargo over rough terrain or in high water. And I don't recall, Captain Cook, was this vehicle used on this deployment?
We manned this vehicle, but we did not take it out of the city, and it actually thankfully did not have to do any rescues this time. But it is fully in service and ready to do what it needs, what we purchased it for. So that's a plus.
And that's as from a decision standpoint, we left team members back here to make sure, because at that point, the storm was still having impacts within the state. After communicating with our city leadership, there was an agreement that we would keep part of our team here to make sure that our community was covered, and we left 2 boats and the high clearance vehicle with a 4-man team. The rest of the team deployed to support the operations down in New Bern and Trenton.
Mm-hmm. So after that roughly week that you were there, how did it feel to be able to come back here and know that you were involved in so much to help these people get back on their feet?
Well, it's always good to come home, because if they have released you and sent you back home, that means that the threat is over for the state and our neighboring communities. And of course, your community has been taken care of. So it's a rewarding feeling. That's why we're here. That's why we're in this business. And it's good to know that when you come back, that everything is taken care of. Hopefully, there's no more death and destruction that's going to come out of this storm, and you've done the best that you could do.
Absolutely. Anything you all would like to add?
I think obviously I definitely need to throw in the amount of support that we have had from our city leadership council. This is, as Captain Cook mentioned earlier, we've come a long way. We've come a long way as a community since Hurricane Floyd. We've come a long way as a department. We did not have, when Hurricane Floyd hit, we did not have a swiftwater rescue team. I would say it was birthed during Floyd because of what we saw and the impacts. And it's taken some support from the state level. It's taken a lot of support from our local level and our local leaders. So I want to thank the community and the leadership in the city for supporting our efforts in becoming a state recognized and nationally recognized swiftwater rescue team, since flooding seems to be a major concern and threat in our state, particularly in our Rocky Mount area. So it's a good resource to have. It's good to have it local, and we look forward to being able to continue to build on that team and provide support not only here in our community but throughout the state in the future.
All right. Well, thanks to both of you for being on City Beat today, and thanks to you and your entire staff for all that you do as well, not only for the city of Rocky Mount, but like this show indicates what you've done for other communities. And we can see the full scope of your abilities with things like this too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for tuning in as well. Don't go away, because we've got more of this show coming up next.
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education? What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills. The smarts.
Yes, you.
You could be the teacher I never forget.
That'd be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
Hello and welcome back to City Beat. I'm your host, Tamika Keenan Norman, and we're still talking about mutual aid on the show today. And of course, we can't forget one of the key departments always involved in mutual aid, and that's our Energy Resources Department. And joining me today, I've got our Director of Energy Resources, Rich Worsinger.
Hello, Tamika.
Welcome back to City Beat.
Glad to be back.
Yeah, and for the first time on the show, Daniel Hicks, who's our electric line supervisor.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, welcome to
Welcome.
City Beat.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you look so comfortable. We got to have you up here some more.
There you go.
All right.
Anytime, let me know.
Yeah, well, like I said, your department always involved when it comes to mutual aid.
Yes.
After Florence, after Michael, you sent 2 electric crews to various locations. Where did you go, and how long were you there?
Well, we went, I'm going to refer to my notes here, because we sent 9 people to Laurinburg. They were there from September 16th to the 19th. And then we sent 5 men to New Bern to help them from the 22nd to the 24th. That was for Hurricane Florence. And then, of course, right after that, we had Hurricane Michael. We sent 6 men to Martinsburg, Virginia, to help them, October 13 to 16. And then we sent 6 people to Danville to help them on the 15th to the 18th. So a little different, going to Virginia for our first time to help our public power brethren in the state of Virginia.
Absolutely. I think you were one of the departments that helped after Michael out of all 3 departments that we interviewed today. So
yes,
always out helping. One of the things I thought was interesting, we were in a staff meeting maybe a couple months ago, and somebody said, look, Michael, when are you all going to Florida? And you said we can't right now. The city has not asked us. They asked us to stay put for a little while. So typically, what type of assessments do cities do before they submit a mutual aid request? And then what's your thought pattern before you respond?
There's actually a lot that goes into it. When a hurricane is predicted to come to the United States, the American Public Power Association has a working group for mutual aid that has members across the country that are talking about what they can do to help and be prepared. And then when that hurricane strikes, the cities that are affected, they do an assessment. How much damage did they sustain? How long will it take to repair? Can they handle it with just their own workforce, or do they need help? But then when you need help, it's also, do you have the facilities to house the people you're bringing in from out of state, and are you going to be able to feed them? And that was the issue with down in Florida. We all saw the news of how that community was just devastated. There's no place for people to stay there, so they couldn't take us to help them. And actually, more local public power communities responded and helped them. But that's okay, because that left us free to help people closer to us that also needed help.
Absolutely. Now, Daniel, Rich mentioned a lot of different areas, a lot of different time frames. Now, where did you actually report to?
I went to Lawrenceburg and I went to New Bern.
Okay, so you were busy. About how long were you in those areas?
Lawrenceburg, 4 days, give or take. New Bern, I went in for 1 day to fill in, and then I was back home.
Okay, so when you go there, I don't know how familiar you are with these areas, but what are some of the first steps that you take, and how do you familiarize yourself with an area?
Well, the first thing we do is, even before we leave here, we all get together and we take our same safety practice with us. We don't change anything. We arrive there. Most times they greet us with a bird dog, a guy that's going to basically show you around. Most of the time he's from the city. He knows the area. He's going to be with the crew. First thing we ask is the system voltage. You know, there's a bunch of different voltages out there. We have our voltage. We work here. Then we ask their hotline procedures. You know, basically, if we're ready to make something back hot, it's been repaired and everything, we go over that. Then the next thing is, which is the major thing, is we ask their safety protocols. And we go by their safety protocols unless ours is stricter. We go with a stricter one. If ours is stricter, we go with ours.
Okay.
And that's what we do most of the time.
And how many people were on your team in those areas?
Lawrenceburg, I'm going to say 8 or 9. And New Bern, 5.
Okay. And how many homes do you think you restored power to in those areas?
To be honest with you, I couldn't even begin to tell you. We really don't keep up with it. We just go and do it and go to the next job. Work as hard as we can for the amount of time we're given to work as safe as possible.
Well, I know the residents are so pleased to see you. What kind of feedback do you get from, if you get any, from residents, city officials there?
Oh, it's great. I mean, from residents to the city officials to everyone. I mean, just think about some of these people have been out of power 10 days. And just to see a truck drive through, whether you're working on them or not, it's just the smile on their face, you can't even explain it.
Oh, you know, my parents, they live in Wallace, so they were affected after Florence, and they were without power for about a week. So when they finally got their electricity, they were just relieved. And I was relieved for them. Sure. You know, I really was. So thank you for all of your efforts. Rich, what do you do to prepare your folks for something like this?
Our preparation is just in preparing what we do all the time. It's the training, the constant emphasis of safety. We always emphasize to our people, safety's got to come first in everything we do. We don't want people taking shortcuts. I'm glad that Daniel mentioned that's what they emphasize when they're out of town. You know, if you teach it at home, that's what they're going to do when they're away. We talk about what requirements are there, the equipment that's going to be needed, and make sure we've got what's necessary to help them.
Daniel, how long would you say, how many hours would you put in during the course of a day while you were in those areas?
Typically we work 16 on, 8 off. That's what we do 90% of the time. If we have 20 more minutes to finish the job, we may work 20 minutes over our 16, but we're going to get our 8 off. Regardless when we stop, we'll get 8 hours off. But typically we try to do 16. And most places, when you go out of town, if the job is going to take way longer than that, they'll let you know that you're not going to finish it today. So work to your hours, and then let's take our 8 hours off.
You talked about how the residents feel, but how did you feel after you went in, you restored power to a lot of homes. I know it was a significant number of homes
yes,
with the
ma'am.
hours that you worked. How did that feel?
Oh, it feels great. It's a great feeling. I mean, it's no better feeling than seeing a teenager, a child, an adult come out and just thank you. We've all been without power, and it ain't nothing greater than getting the light to come back on. And everybody's great, and it makes you feel good inside knowing that you're actually helping someone.
Absolutely.
I mean, at that time, it don't matter who you are, where you're from. It's just everybody's there to help everybody.
Absolutely. You know, Rich, you sent out a press release right after this saying that, hey, we were lucky. Rocky Mount was blessed. We weren't severely impacted after Florence or after Michael, not
Yes.
severely. And you were glad to be able to help neighboring communities. How have those communities returned the favor in the past?
Wow. Well, I'm going to go back even before I was here. Hurricane Floyd, as you may recall, devastated the city. Over 20% of the city was underwater, widespread power outages. We received mutual aid help, others coming in to help us. And then during my time here, back in 2002, there was an ice storm that struck. Hit us on December 5th, 2002. Widespread outages, and I especially remember that because my birthday is on December 6th. And at midnight, I'm down at the dispatch office. All of a sudden, people came walking in with a chocolate cake with candles on it, wished me happy birthday. We had a slice of cake, then we went back to work and worked through the night to get power back on. 2003, Hurricane Isabel. 2011, Hurricane Irene. We had people coming in to help us all those times. So we're glad to go help others. We've been to Florida many times to help others, helped locally inside the state. That's what the public power communities do. We help each other, and that's what helps us, allows us to get the power back on quicker. We help each other, quickly get that power back on, and that's what we're known for.
Absolutely. I remember Irene. I was supposed to get married that day.
Oh, wow.
But we moved it to the next day. But I bet you all have made some really true friends with all these mutual aid efforts. I mean, is that the case?
Yes.
Good connections, good friends.
I've met guys that from storms, and I stay up with them through social media. But you go to another storm, you see them again. Also see them in schools we go to help our safety side, and you meet a lot of friends, a lot of good people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for being on the show today. Any additional comments? Anything you want to add?
Just we're glad to help others, Tamika. When we need help, people are there to help us, so we're glad to help others. It's that back and forth that we're just glad for both ways.
Absolutely. And please send a big thank you to your entire team.
I will do that.
All
Thank you
right.
for having us on.
And thank you for tuning in to another edition of City Beat as well. If you missed the show, we want you to see it in its entirety and learn more about how the fire department and our public works and water resources department assisted with mutual aid efforts as well. And you can find out more by logging onto our website at rockymountnc.gov. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of City Beat. We'll see you next week.